What a wonderful grace. But if we get scared that it will make us fall ill, then we turn the grace upside down and we lose the golden opportunity. So today is the last session, and probably it'll be better to make a short summary. Sri Aurobindo summarizes it, of course, himself at the beginning of the next canto, next book, and after reading a few lines from there, we can get back. It's on page 465. It's the start of a new book, the Book of Yoga. And very appropriately, if we really want to be master of fate, we have to engage in yoga. There is no other way. Nobody else can help us. And it starts with a short summary of the previous canto. Not all the points, but few things. Book 7, Canto 1, the joy of union, the ordeal of the foreknowledge of death, and the heart's grief and pain. Fate followed her foreseen, immutable road. Man's hopes and longings build the journeying wheels. What a beauty of choice of words. That bear the body of his destiny and lead his blind will towards an unknown goal. His fate within him shapes his acts and rules. So it's putting the whole thing the other way around. It's not our acts that shape the fate. It is the fate that shapes the acts. We have not heard of this before. That is the fate that leads us through various twists and turns of life, events, circumstances, and everything that we experience. It is moving us towards a far off unknown goal, which has already been revealed to us briefly. Its face and form already are born in him. Its parentage is in his secret soul. So who decides? We choose. And when did we choose? We chose it at that point of time when we plunged into inconscience. That is the first moment. And why did we choose it? Well, for the joy of it. Because we come from bliss and we go towards bliss. And we want to experience this bliss of oneness in a manifold ways, which includes the joy of danger, the charm of escape from a very difficult situation, the delight of union after a long separation. All these are so many things for which the soul has plunged into this ignorance, into this inconscience, and from there the journey begins. This is the original karma, if you like. And that's why at one place in the beginning, on page 443, Sri Aurobindo reveals the secret of pain. Pain was the firstborn of the inconscience, which was thy body's dumb original base. Already slept there pain's subconscious shape, a shadow in a shadowy tenebrous womb. The shadow of pain, the roots of pain, the seeds of pain are already there even before creation has begun to emerge. Body grows on it as on a base. So what is this original pain? This is the original pain which cries in different ways, sometimes in the joint, sometimes in the mind, sometimes in the heart, sometimes in the life part, sometimes in the head. The original pain is the pain of separation. As being plunged into this inconscient and suddenly was overwhelmed and experienced a sense of separation. There is no real separation. The mother says repeatedly that there is no real separation. The divine has never separated himself from creation. If he were to do it, creation would collapse. There is no sustenance. But she says, but we have tried very hard to separate ourselves from him, and then she gives a pause and says, and we have succeeded. So, with a touch of her humor. So, this sense of separation, which immediately was experienced by the being as it plunged into this inconscient, of course, this was necessary for the whole evolutionary journey. That's a different thing. That was the first cry, an SOS. And that cry continues to be there within us all the time. Every time the body cries with pain, it wants to engage in a yoga. It wants that matter should be uplifted to unite with the divine principle. That's the only final remedy. But of course, we have many Chinna remedies all round the corner, and we have to go through them, and we have to experience the imperfection of all these remedies. They have their place in a relative way. But the final remedy for the pains that we experience at every level, even at the physical level, it is the pain of ignorance that this is a separate body, that is a separate body, and body is separated from the divine. Divine is something else, and body is something else. So all this sense in which we seemingly concretely live is the birthplace of the pain. So pain was born the moment the plunge was taken into inconscience, and along with the pain also came the remedy. And the remedy was the divine love that has plunged into the abyss. At that very point, as the cry went, the divine love plunged into the abyss and started, the rescue process started, and that is the whole journey of evolution. So the remedy and the problem coexist. We don't have to go anywhere else. They coexist. But it needs tremendous faith. They coexist in the sense wherever there is a pain, most physically, and the mother repeated experiences she gives this. Most physically it applies, not just about inner realms. Of course it applies at the inner realm. We have to apply a super balm, not available off the shelf, but available with us, all of us. And that is the balm of divine love. It alone can heal. And it heals in strange ways. It has its own ways. It's not according to human understanding. It goes to the roots and it heals it there. And yet, as long as we are ignorant, as long as we are hard, rigid, as long as we are limited beings, as long as we do not know the larger plot, we are destined to experience pain. Good karma or bad karma. It is regardless of that. And why Sri Aurobindo is speaking of pain in the Book of Fate? Because it's the pain that makes us think. If everything was joyous and wonderful, we won't even care to know what is fate. We don't need foreknowledge. Everything is wonderful. So why worry about it? It's only when we are struck with the anomaly of pain that we seek. All these questions arise in our mind as in the mind of the queen. So essentially, this is the larger picture we need to keep in mind. And outside there was a very living demonstration going on of the whole, all that we have read about ignorance and why there is pain. So there was a rod which is going to be used for building it. Plenty of rods have to be used. Now this rod, they were iron rods, so they're very hard. So I don't know if somebody noticed it, but maybe the machine will be still there. It's a platform on which the rod is kept. And it is fixed between a kind of contraption. And then there were 3 persons. One of them was holding that rod with a thick plier and trying to bend it. The other person had something hard to beat it in case it doesn't listen to it. And the third person was just holding the whole thing. So I said, my God, if the rod could experience or could voice its concerns, it would say some cruel hands are, what a destiny I have. Some cruel hands are doing this to me. It was so nice. I was lying idly on the road, and somebody has picked me up, and God knows what these hands have in their mind. But if the rod, same rod, understood that it was useless lying on the road, it had a greater destiny. And that destiny was to be used as pillar material for the building of, let's put it, new creation. Then it would understand, somebody has recognized my worth. Otherwise we feel God is a cruel tyrant and the cosmic law is all the time beating us. But that is our worth. It's our real worth that we have been chosen to go through this process of grilling. That's why we also read, pain is the hand of nature sculpturing men. to greatness, and inspired labor chisels with heavenly cruelty an unwilling mold. So, another solution for the pain is to learn to be a willing mold, which means malleability, plasticity, and wideness and surrender, all the things that we need to, inculcate. If we have wideness means the iron rod should know it is not just a separate iron rod, but it's part of a large whole, a building where bricks and mortar and sand and cement, everything is going to come into play. So that is wideness, where we are not just thinking only of ourselves, but the larger picture in which we have a place, however small or big, it doesn't matter. And we consent to be in that place. That is called wideness, and that is something beautiful. And plasticity. So if that iron rod was more malleable, it would not feel so much pain. But the other problem of that is God needs all kinds of material. So he also has to use hard material and rigid material, and therefore there are different varieties of humanity which are used for the great new creation. The second interesting thing about this canto is that it starts with the question of the queen, and it ends with the answer, and the answer, final answer, is Savitri. This question and answer at 3 different or 4 different points comes in Savitri. For instance, Savitri starts with quest of Ashwapati. It's not a question, but quest. And his quest is the ideal must be the body's natural state. Why should it be found only in some inaccessible heights? It must be our home. This quest leads him through a whole series of experiences, individual, cosmic, and eventually transcendent. What is the final answer he finds? The grace of the Divine Mother. Alone her hands can change time's dragon base. Hers is the mystery the night conceals. The spirit's alchemist energy is hers. So he finds that answer. The final answer is the Divine Mother and grace. Then comes the queen. She is not a tapasvi like Ashwapati. She is like all of us, a questioning mortal mind which doesn't understand the ways of the divine or the ways of creation or the ways of cosmos, and she questions. Now Narada gives number of answers. At the end of all these questions, he again gives the same answer which Ashwapati has received. O queen, strive no more to change the fate. She alone can save. Again and again Narada says, which we had read yesterday. Cry not to heaven, for she alone can save. For this the silent force came mission down. In her the conscious will took human shape. She only can save herself and save the world. So again we see the same answer. Then third time we have the questions when Savitri questions. Now she is a human incarnate and she is confronted with the enigma of death. And she also gets the same answer, that you carry in yourself the force, the strength, the light, the love that can save. You have to awaken it. She gets the same answer. Then death questions. It questions Savitri that no, this is my domain. Pain can never vanish from earth. Man will always remain tied to ignorance. There is a possibility of going up to heaven. Then Savitri gives the same answer to death and says, Death, you raise the questions, but I am the answer. She doesn't say that I will give you, she explains logically, but at the end she says, I am, I see, I love, I act. That's all. She says, I am the answer. And then finally, when all the thing is done and sages come and they find that Satyavan has miraculously, there is a glow on his face and everything has happened that day is miraculous, marvelous. The king's kingdom and his sight has been restored and there is a happy feeling in the whole air. And Satyavan himself is looking luminous and Savitri is looking luminous. And then they question that what is the miracle of this change? And once again, Satyavan gives the same answer. Lay all on her. She is the cause of all. If this is she of whom the world has heard, wonder no more at any happy change. Each easy miracle of felicity of her transmuting heart the alchemy is. So at the end of the day, after every question, we see the answer is the grace, the love, the light. But there are halfway solutions, and that also we have been told there is an individual solution of freedom from ignorance. Now, freedom from ignorance is well known, but this freedom from ignorance is a fundamental freedom where the soul is freed from the ignorance and it does not suffer. But at the same time, the body, the mind, the life parts, even the heart, they may experience pain. It comes on the surface and goes. The inner being is free. But that's not the ultimate remedy, because the roots of pain are plunged in conscience. And that's the ultimate remedy for which the avatar comes, the great divine descents take place. And every time the avatar takes a human body to solve this enigma of pain. So this is what we have been told. And another very beautiful thing which we need to remember again and again, that fate operates at two levels. This Ashwapati is also revealed. One is at the outer level. Outer level normally we think is events, circumstances, situations, all kinds of things that happen. But there is an inner level at which fate operates, and this inner level eventually determines the outer. So even in the midst of terrible circumstances, if we lose hope and succumb, then we are gone. We are lost. We lose a game when we have lost it inside. But we can instead continue to keep our hope alive, continue to keep the faith alive. And this will eventually create a pressure on the outer circumstances and begin to change it. Even when we are in ignorance, it works. But it takes a lot more effort. But if we can free ourselves from ignorance, then we have the power, the will. Our will can be aligned to the divine will. This is the answer that is given to us. Our force can be aligned with the divine force. Our human heart and its passions can be aligned with the divine love. Then this has tremendous power to change the most external circumstances. In fact, the mother says this is one of the powers that the supramental is going to bring with it. The power to change outer circumstances. And this is something we have seen with Sri Aurobindo, that even a storm is raging outside and he is sitting with the windows open, writing on the table, and not a drop of water is entering. So this power comes as the will and everything in us gets aligned more and more. And then as another very beautiful thing which we can read, page 459. Death is the spirit's opportunity. Everything, at every level. Sri Aurobindo says that God drives us out of every Eden. Not only one Eden, that's the original. So that crossing a desert of morass, desert and morass, we may eventually reach a greater paradise. So when we are driven out of Eden and our comfort zones, everybody has a little Eden, where there is a little apple and there is a little snake. The snake is the evolutionary energy. See how children step out of their Eden. The first Eden we step out of is the womb. What an Eden! Nothing we have to do. Everything is provided for. No thinking, no feeling, no problems, nothing. No issues. And therefore we cry, driven out of Eden. But there are many kinds of joys we cannot experience if we are in the womb. So we have to come out of that Eden. The next Eden is the cradle. Dangerous. Very dangerous. We wonder why the soul jumped out. See, the memory remains. So children step out of the cradle. But if they don't step out of the cradle, they will never learn to walk and run and go to far off places. So that is the second Eden. The third Eden is when they step out of their home. Of course, nowadays they step out with a mobile phone, SOS. We also carry a mobile with us, inner mobile. Mother uses this word in not the mobile, but exactly very similar thing. She says, each time the cells panic and are in a difficulty, they send an SOS signal to the Supreme. So we have to type out SOS. SOS is very easy. Only thing is we have to keep a connection. In case of emergency, dial 111. That's God's number. Even one will do. All other numbers are 10-digit, difficult to dial, but his number is very simple, 1. So we have to dial and send an SOS. It's nothing new. The Gita talks about it, Arth. And it's the experience of many that in a state when we cry for help with all our being, with all the trust, of course the line must be made clear, but even without that, there is a response of grace. Lifts us out, pulls us out. So every time we go and see, then there is such a joy. This joy can we ever have unless we face danger and difficulty? Not that we should quote danger and difficulty, but the joy that the divine comes and rescues us and lifts us out and saves us. This experience the soul could never have had when it is in that blissful oneness. All these experiences, these different types of bliss, we had to experience, and that's what we have read, that's why it is plunged into this great adventure. So death is the spirit's opportunity. A vast intention has brought two souls close. In everything, every event, there is a vast intention and a small intention. Small intention is what is seen by the ego. What benefit will it give to me? This is small intention. And the vast intention is known by the soul. This is a larger intention. And love and death conspire towards one great end. For out of danger and pain, heaven bliss shall come. Time's unforeseen event, God's secret plan. So it's not just an unrolling of karma. It's not my planning that you do the karma and so you reap the fruit. This is ignorance. Karma itself is a, Sri Aurobindo uses this word, karma itself is a secondary and subordinate mechanism. It's just a machinery used by something else which is much greater, by a deeper wisdom, which pushes us even through unseen hands, through various kinds of ups and downs, eventually to fulfill the greater destiny. So time's unforeseen event, God's secret plan. This world was not built with random bricks of chance. A blind God is not destiny's architect. A conscious power has drawn the plan of life. So it's not a blind God who just doesn't care about us and just keeps on doling out, okay, next, give me your karma list, this karma, this result. It doesn't work out like that. It's not machinery. There is a conscious power and wisdom. That's why we see anomalies and we don't understand it. If it was as simple as that, then it would be very easy to explain the world. There are good people who suffer. There are bad people who rejoice. Sometimes this is the worst punishment. Mother says, she was asked, why doesn't the divine give to the asuras what they want? Ravana got what he wanted. And he created havoc. So she was asked, why does the divine give to the asuras what they want? So the mother says, it is the fastest way to take them to their end. Logical conclusion. This is divine's logic. Our logic is different. Shiva had known all about Ravana. He should have right then and there stopped him. But Ravana's destiny is to dissolve in the Lord. Who will dare to stand against incarnate divine unless he has a sullen ego, aggrandized ego, and believes foolishly that I can, try to do this. So he has to reach that level of foolishness. So the ego is sullen, aggrandized. And when it is aggrandized, then all that the divine needs is to put a pin, like abscesses. That's what doctors say. Don't worry, don't take antibiotics, put some hot fermentation and then it's ready for puncture. So the divine wisdom does not act according to the human wisdom. And to the good, it makes them go through suffering and pain. Because they have to become God's instrument. They have not chosen for dissolution. Somewhere they have aspired that I want to be an instrument, maybe your wheel or maybe your, a spoke, Something like that. So they have to go through repeated testing under fire until the divine puts a stamp, or the adverse forces put a stamp, 6 sigma. They are there to put a stamp on of perfection. If they see that the stamp is not perfect, they send us back. And we think, oh, these fellows are very bad. But they have their own role. They remind us that there is imperfection. So Sri Aurobindo completely changes our understanding of karma. A blind God is not destiny's architect. A conscious power has drawn the plan of life. There is a meaning in each curve and line. And this is the great reassurance, that it's not left to us. And honestly, if it is left to man's karma, nobody will ever be able to take even a few steps forward, because we start with so much ignorance. There is a heavy load of past karmas, few good deeds, that too doubtful, questionable good deeds, done often with a selfish intent of going to heaven, but full of all kinds of deeds which are selfish. It's only because of that wisdom and grace that we survive and go there. So this is the great assurance, and this is what we have to remember. This assurance is given several places, and here the mother speaks of it in a different context, that eventually she has spoken about it in several places. One place where she says very simply, the grace can completely cancel karma, can completely dissolve karma. The grace can completely change fate. It's not just a machinery. So here the mother says about grace. If you knew what grace is, what I have to endure to bring the grace down to men and the worlds, in what circumstances and what resistances, if you knew what I have to do, then she stops the sentence halfway. She doesn't want to give the full truth. This grace and love towards which alone we should open. And this is the real remedy. And this is the real solution. It's not just a solace, it's a fact. So here we read Savitri comes down and she takes upon herself the burden. She identifies with ignorant humanity. This is what she is revealing here. Since I have a love and compassion which extends and pours itself towards the earth and its beings without their asking for it or deeming it necessary, even when we don't ask for it, when we don't think it is necessary, still it leans down. Since my grace gives itself and never asks anything in return. Savitri made no conditions to Satyavan. Satyavan told her that, will you be happy, satisfied? I have a small hermitage, small place. I cannot offer you a palace. All that I can give you is the fresh water of the stream and the fruits. That's all. And if you consent, you come down. And she comes down. She lays no conditions. Since I have consented to come down into this ignorance, this is what we get the answer, final answer. To take on myself the burden of misery, of suffering, of the resistance of the inconscience in order to heal and transform the fate of man and the destiny of the world. Since my will is tied indissolubly with the beings and the world, we want to separate. But she has yoked her will to ours. What kind of a yoga is this? Reverse yoga. Yoga means to unite with the divine. She has changed the rules of the game. She says, man cannot unite with the divine. Don't worry. I will become man and unite myself to you. This is, we don't know. This can be yoga. Yoga in reverse. So she says, I have tied my will so that your fate and destiny can be changed. Not just human destiny, but the destiny of the world. She speaks about it. When people asked her, will there be a third world war? She said, man will go to the brink, but it will not happen again because of the supramental descent. Since my will is tied indissolubly with the beings and the world. So indissolubly, exactly this line comes in Savitri when she is offered along with Satyavan to be in the highest heaven. She says, no, I have tied myself indissolubly. That is why my compassion flows without restraint. It is because I have such a relation with all of you that my grace bathes you without your wanting it or not. It is like this perpetually. It's not that some hours it is there and some hours it's not there. All the time. You do not know who I am, who has descended amongst you all. It is the Supreme who has consented to lift you up out of the ignorance. So we read about ignorance. And Narada gives a remedy. Man, you have to align yourself and tune yourself and become wide. She says, I know man will not be able to do it. So she says, therefore I have come. The Supreme has consented to lift you out of ignorance. It is because my supreme grace and compassion reach out towards all of you in an overwhelming way that you are so well protected. That is why, how can you dream of a life without grace? That I cannot, my child, I cannot deny grace to anyone. Of one thing we can be sure, that grace is not denied to anyone. You are all a portion of me, held by my consciousness and tied by my consciousness, one with me. All that we need is to remember it and become conscious of it. That's all that is needed. When you understand what it means, then you will have taken a big step forward. You will have solved many a mystery, including the mystery of pain and fate. But we love to complicate things. Sri Aurobindo is a philosopher, a thinker. He has given the philosophy of the supermind. And you have to silence your mind, do this, do that. Very complex yoga and reach. She makes it so simple. Grace. Then she says, here, take the flower. The flower of grace she is handing over. And with it, the grace. Never doubt it. What will follow? It is unforeseen, but it is worth something. She says, don't worry. It is unforeseen what is going to come. But don't worry, my grace is there. It is direct and more true and real. You will see, my child, in what abundance the grace is showered on all of you. You do not know. You have no idea. Then how can you know who I am for the whole universe, the worlds and the beings? That's why Queen cannot understand who is Savitri. She thinks she is just my daughter. That's all. She doesn't know. And this is what we have seen. The supreme grace which extends over and penetrates all existence with its omniscience. And without this support, men and beings would not exist. And then one last passage, and then we can stop. You know, I am everywhere, here, there, far, above, below, in you, and even in the very depths of the inconscience. So she has not left any place. Even in the densest darkness, there is hope because she is there and the grace is there. I am everywhere. When you call me sincerely, I appear before you. This is the condition, to call her sincerely, with full trust. But you must develop this consciousness so that you are able to see me constantly, to feel my presence because I am always with you. It should be like this. You call me and I am before you. I am not limited by this body. This body is a tiny part of what I am. It is an infinitely small part of my consciousness. This body is nothing. It is only a small base. But me, I am infinitely vast. My consciousness is everywhere and in everything, and wide as infinity. This body is only a small portion. It is here in order to establish a physical contact, to give itself and to receive. It is not even a physical contact, but material. Something material. You understand? And if I did not veil myself with a certain degree of obscurity, I could not come in contact with earth and men. So this is the final answer to the problem of pain, suffering, and the enigma of fate. Instead of complicating our minds with whether man has a free will or not, whether fate can be changed or not, what are the levels at which fate operates, we have read all that in Savitri. The final answer is to lean for everything on the grace and the love supreme of the Divine Mother. There is no greater word of wisdom than this. Lay all on her. She is the cause of all. We'll close here and close with some moments of meditation. And then there is some prasad which all of us can take. And there will be no Tuesday class this coming Tuesday, but next to that we'll resume.